Thanks for doing the spotlight interview. I appreciate it.
Oh, my pleasure, man. Thanks for including me. I appreciate it, dude.
So yeah, growing up in the 70s out in Saskatchewan, there wasn't a huge tattoo scene out there. So what sort of got you interested in doing tattoos?
Oh, man. Just, seeing the rare tattoos I did see had a really big impression on me, man. I just thought it was so powerful to see a picture on somebody's arm. It was mind-blowing as a kid. Even though it was pretty rare, when it did happen, it was like, wow, So it was always in my psyche. And as soon as I was old enough to get tattooed, or I actually tried before I was old enough to get tattooed and got turned away, like when I was 16,
Mm-hmm.
But as soon as I was old enough, I felt like I had to get tattooed. It just sort of called to me,
Yeah, and I find with a lot of tattooers that when we're younger and we first see a tattoo, we're drawn to it. It's like we're mesmerized by it. We're like the tattoo's like a magnet. It pulls us in, right?
Absolutely. The idea of being able to have a permanent picture on your skin, and like, how do you do that? It's just mind blowing as a little kid,
Mm-hmm. So who did your first tattoo for
Still
you?
mind blowing.
It is. It is.
Totally. Yeah, totally. I'm still fascinated by it every day, man. This woman, Teresa Johnson,
Mm-hmm.
she owned Electric Lady Lux Tattoo in Vancouver. Up until pretty recently, I think she had her shop open, but this was before her shop, when she was still working out of her apartment off Commercial Drive.
And then when you got the tattoo, did it sort of plant the seed even deeper into your psyche that you wanted to do tattoos, or what was going through your mind?
Absolutely. Like, just seeing the process firsthand and feeling it and actually taking this thing home, like, oh man, this is actually there, was really magical, right? Like, and also at the time, Teresa was going to art school and she was doing her master or her graduation project on tattooing.
Okay.
So it kind of linked the path I was on at the time. I didn't kind of put that together until a bit later, but it kind of linked what I was doing with tattooing as like, hey, this is a actual art form now. This is like, kind of crossing the boundaries of just existing in the biker world or the,
Mm-hmm.
the counterculture world, right? It was kind of the beginning of making the inroads into popular culture, right?
That's right. And so this was like the early 90s, right? When you got your first tattoo?
Yeah, I got my first tattoo in 1990.
Okay. And then in 1990, you applied and were accepted at Emily Carr University for Art and Design. Did you have did you go there wanting to learn how to draw so you could become a tattoo artist, or what was your thoughts?
Like at the time, I still thought I was going to be a painter, illustrator.
Okay.
Like I was still pursuing fine art in and of itself. So
Mm-hmm.
I mean, tattooing was just an interest on the side. Getting tattooed, but I had more and more of a desire to get tattooed because in Vancouver, I was seeing way more tattooed people. Seeing tattoos on a scale that you just weren't seeing on the prairies at the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that wasn't. I didn't quite put the pieces together that I could actually do this for a living yet.
So how did it transition over into you actually doing tattoos?
Oh, just, I think being at art school and it not quite being what I expected it to be, culturally, I couldn't really relate to it. There's, I guess at the time, layers of pretension that I really wasn't used to. I kind of like the idea of doing art that everybody could appreciate, and that thinking that sort of, yeah, maybe make the decision to drop out of art school, because I felt like I wasn't really getting the, probably if I would have stuck around, I would have got a lot more of that technical information I was hoping to get out of school. But I felt like a lot of it, I was just seeing the politics that's around that world, and it kind of put me off, being a punk rock kid. It just didn't sit well with my sensibilities,
Sure, yeah.
So, yeah, so, just talking to a few friends that had tattoos and I'd gotten a second tattoo by this point. Uh, yeah, I just thought, man, maybe I could do this. Like, maybe this is something I could do. So I started going around to a bunch of shops that were in Vancouver at the time and sort of, hanging out because I was still young and shy, right? So, trying to feel it out, you know,
Mm-hmm.
until I kind of got the courage up to ask a couple of people, and that wasn't well received at all. It was, I don't think so, kid. Beat it, like the vibe,
Yeah.
what was the vibe of the time, right? So
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
so
still hard to break into in the early 90s, right? There was
absolutely right.
the old guard was still had its arms up, keeping us
Yeah,
at arm's length.
absolutely. And like with good reason, right? Like
Mm.
the still a lot more niche clientele, right? So there was a certain amount of customers you could draw on in a certain area, right? So, I can understand why it was like that, but it was definitely pretty harsh to try and approach a lot of these guys that were kind of entrenched in them, a lot of them entrenched in the biker world and were pretty rough dudes.
Yeah. Yeah, and you hear the term gatekeepers. If they think we're gatekeepers, they should have went back another generation. They can learn what a
Oh
real
yeah,
gatekeeper.
yeah. Oh man, yeah, for sure. Like, yeah, the whole like, oh man, am I gonna get my thumbs broken if I go in here and ask the wrong thing or ask too many questions or and that was a real worry at the time.
Well, I was just I had an interview with Dave Windenboer, and he was talking about when he was tattooing at early New Tribe before he actually owned it. Ace had sent over a guy to break his boss's thumbs. And from his crew, I think it was
Yeah.
Carl. He sent Carl over to break
Oh.
this guy's thumbs, and Carl shows up and he's like, "Yeah, dude, I gotta come and break your thumbs." And
Yeah, it's nothing personal, man. So I got to do it. It's just the way it is, right?
yeah, like, give me your thumbs. Apparently, the guy talked his way out of having his thumbs broke that day, but that was a very real thing that could happen back then.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, super super territorial world.
So I remember when we did our interview that you were talking about you got some equipment through a friend of yours. How did that transition into you tattooing? How did that all go
Oh,
down?
yeah. I mean, it was just a guy that I knew around town from, just the music bar scene, just a sort of a guy that was on the edge of our friend group, and he had spent some time in Vancouver and hung around tattoo shops, and he was trying to break into tattooing, and for whatever reason, he'd given up on it. So he had all this stuff, this big box of Spalding gear, the big black toaster power supply and a
Mm-hmm.
couple of machines and, some pre-made needles. And yeah, he's just like, oh man, no, yes, so you're kind of, we were talking about tattooing and being a bit interested in it. And he's like, well, I got this stuff, man. Like I don't really know that much, but I can show you what I know, and
Mm-hmm.
try it. So yeah, I set up in the spare room in my house at the time and did a little tattoo on my leg,
Yeah.
and I was just like, that's it. I'm figuring out how to do this. That's it, So
Yeah, it'd be like, holy
right
fuck, the
away,
gates of heaven opened up for you, right?
oh, 100%, yeah,
Yeah.
100%. It was like,
Yeah.
yeah, totally, right. So
But
yeah, so and then just started out. I think the second guy I tattooed was one of my younger brothers, and then on to friends, and just started practicing while I had this guy's gear.
yeah.
He left it in my house for a couple of months, until I thought, it got to the point where I was just like, okay, I'm gonna ask him if he'll just sell me this stuff, because he wasn't really using it, right? So I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna hit him up and see what he wants to. And he's like, no, I won't sell it. I gotta get it back. So yeah, so I hit my parents up. I was like, okay, I've got this catalog. I gave me a catalog, and I was just like, okay, I'm just gonna figure this out. I'm gonna borrow some money from my folks, and I'm gonna order some stuff. And yeah, luckily that conversation didn't go that bad at the time. Like, with a lot of parents in the early 90s, that wouldn't have been an easy conversation. They were just like, you want to do what?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Mean, if that's your dream, okay, like, we'll scrape together what we can, and here you go, So yeah, they lent me a bit of money, and I ordered up all the stuff that I thought you needed to run a tattoo shop, like a dry heat sterilizer and like, I think I ordered like a straight razor and acetate sheets and an acetate cutter, because I didn't know what the hell I actually needed, right? So at least I had my copy of Tattooing A to Z, right? So
Okay, yeah.
so that's all you need, right?
Oh, yeah, everything you need to know is right in that book.
Totally, yeah.
Yeah.
Don't shade it too much.
Yeah.
Don't fill the things in too black,
Yeah.
That was the instructions, right?
Yeah, I remember reading that book.
Yeah. My very favorite in that book was the cover up. The example of the cover up.
Yeah.
Bubble cloud filled in black.
Yeah.
Right?
That's how I do all my cover-ups.
Yeah, it's effective.
Yeah. It makes it easy. Just one size fits all. Bubble cloud.
Yeah, totally. 8-ball, bubble cloud.
Yeah, there you go. We got this figured out. We need to write our own manual.
Oh yeah, absolutely, right.
So you get some
the updated version.
Yeah, the updated. We could.
Yeah, some lightning coming out of the cloud.
Oh yeah.
Make it fancy. See, there's our book, man.
Yeah, I don't know if the kids would keep up to that these days. That's a little technical. So you get this tattoo equipment and you start tattooing, and not long after you opened up your own shop.
I did. Yeah, I did. Like, it was pretty rudimentary little place. It was basically, tiny little room in this little mall that was underneath this old apartment block, and had a old lady's hair salon next door, so it smelled like perm all day, and yeah, it was. But it was, it was mine, and it was cheap.
Yeah.
It was, yeah, and put out a sign on the front, and within the first week, I had people coming in to check it out, and made money the first week I was open, not really knowing what the hell I was doing, but
And and
fake it
for
till you make it, right?
and for people that don't know, you were in Regina, and the only tattooer there was RJ at Valhalla at the time.
Exactly. Yeah, he was the only show in town when I opened. So,
Now, early in your career, you went and were tattooed by Paul Jeffries. How did that go, and how did it influence your tattooing?
oh, tons. Tons. Just to see the way they ran their shop was amazing. He like Paul and Wink, like they had it down to a science. Just the way they handled the walk-ins and the way the waiting room was set up, and just for the time, the level of professionalism was way above what I knew about. So it was cool to see all that, and just how fast and efficient of a tattooer Paul was, and all his great stories. And he made the time he tattooed me fly by and be really fun. So
When you see somebody that's raised the bar, it sort of gives you the inclination of where to reach in your own business. And I'm sure that certainly became a model for you moving forward.
100%. Like you kind of got a glimpse into what it could be, and what you could build your business as and run it as a business and be professional. Like when I first started, it was me and my ex-wife that basically ran the business, and we were kids. We were straight up kids.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the shop was kind of a clubhouse more than a pro shop. Like
When I went through your Instagram uh, page, I noticed that it was chocked full of, Japanese style work, Asian influenced work. When I first met you, which was, I think it was back in 94, 95 at the first tattoo convention in Guelph, you were doing biomechanical, and then when I friended you on Instagram, I'm looking at all this Japanese stuff going, holy shit, look at this. This is amazing. And so that's sort of your main style of tattooing that you prefer, and why?
yeah, I mean it definitely became my sort of focus. It kind of grabbed my interest maybe. Oh, I mean, it's probably been 15 years now, when it first started to like, the more I learned about tattooing, when I first saw Japanese work, like in the early magazines, like in some of the international tattoo art, I mean, it was striking, but like to the art of the time, it seemed kind of simplistic. You know what I mean? So you didn't, it was hard to see past the really boiled down graphic nature of it when everybody was trying to reinvent the wheel and do all this really fancy, interesting shit at the time, like
Mhm.
like you remember that was totally an era of early 90s was super experimental in tattooing, and
Yeah.
most of it failed experiments, but super experimental. Like everybody was coming in and trying to, oh no, I can make this more graphic, more graffiti influence, or with all the new school stuff, and
Hmm.
the biomechanical Guy Atchison and all those guys really like showing a different side of what tattooing could be. But the more I kind of got into tattooing and realized the technical aspect, and that it's more challenging to make a really good looking, simple, clean graphic tattoo. It's like it's a harder thing. It's like it's like anything, right? You play guitar, and you're the 19-year-old shredder and you play 100 notes a minute, but then as you mature as a musician, you kind of start to distill it down to its essence. And that's what I feel Japanese tattooing is. It's sort of a distillation of what, to me, what a good tattoo should be. you know and the fact that they've been refining that imagery for the body for so long and have created this graphic language that's designed to fit the human body is super amazing, you know? And it's like working within the sort of the restrictions of the style and try to find the balance between visually interesting but super strong and graphic and bold and readable and have super good longevity. That's what really still draws me into this day. What I, and what I still strive for is like make something that has impact and, has the influences of like Western tattooing in there because that's where I came from, but use the design principles from Asian tattooing.
And what you're saying puts me in mind of a conversation I had with Scott McEwen. He was talking about how, in the 90s, there was so much pseudo-Japanese work happening, and he went over to Japan and learned from the masters. And when he came back, he became a real purist in the way that he would execute his work. And there's so much intention, story, and history involved in the work. And when you really, I don't understand Japanese work. Like I don't know the stories. I don't know the proper way to design them. But I certainly admire it when I see somebody who has taken a minute to really take in.
Yeah, I mean it's always a struggle, right? Like there's so many layers that you can dive into in Japanese tattooing that it's really bottomless.
And your work, if you were standing across the street, you could pick that out and know exactly what you're looking at. It reads so well at a distance, but if you get up on it, it's clean and tidy up close, and yeah, you're nailing it.
100% the aim. Like I feel like that's, to me, like, this is obviously just my opinion, but that to me is what a great tattoo is. Yeah.
And then present day, you have your own private studio, and
yeah, this is my little spot. Yeah, so it's really nice to just, with the kind of work I'm doing these days, it's really nice to concentrate. No distractions, one client a day, and just kind of get into our little world. It's nice.
Hey, the last time we talked, we were talking about the commercialization of tattooing, and we were both kind of ranting a little bit, and you told me about these ink caps, designer ink caps. So
yeah, okay.
I found some. I found some Pikachu ink caps, and I'm gonna buy a bunch.
Those exclusively now, yeah.
No, I'm gonna buy them for you.
Oh, thanks, bud. Thanks, bud. I need a little whimsy in my tattoo setup. It's just not. It doesn't have enough fantasy in it. It's Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, that's where you get the magic these days. I'll include.
It's really nice that it's for sale, right?
Yeah, I'll include a photo of the Pikachu ink caps that I'm going to send you.
Oh, awesome! Yeah,
in this video.
I'll be waiting.
Yeah, your tattoos are just going to be crazy good after you use these ink caps.
Yeah. Like I knew there was something lacking. Definitely Pikachu ink cap.
Anyways.
Oh, man.
Jarret, it was such a great time to connect with you again and do this spotlight video. I really appreciate you taking a few minutes out of your evening.
Well, it's incredible pleasure as always, Ned, and thanks a lot for interviewing me. I appreciate you and what you do for Canadian tattooing and tattooing at large. Thanks, brother.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. Like, I feel like the lucky one that I get to hang out with all these really awesome Canadians. I'm proud to be a Canadian tattooer. We have amazing tattooists all across this country, and it's such an honor to do what I'm doing. Well, everybody, thanks for watching. We appreciate you taking some time out of your day or evening to listen to Jarret's personal history. Jarret has always been someone that I've thought very highly of over the years. I met him in the early mid '90s, and back then, when I saw what he was drawing and tattooing, I remember thinking to myself, I want to be as good as him someday. So it was, yeah, your stuff you were doing back in early days in Guelph, the biomechanical stuff. It was just like, wow, it was blowing my mind. So you inspired me early on. I don't know if you know that, but you